The backlog should, apart from the user stories, it should also have the tasks. The tasks could be, for example, it could be that I need to build a database. I need to have some tables in the database. That is a task. I need to have some wireframes, create wireframes for these, how the site should look like. That's again another task. So all of these tasks, again, are part of the backlog. And then you actually kind of start refining from there. You create epics, you say that I want this big administrative functionality. I want a shopping cart functionality. So within that, you would then say the user stories could be, as a customer, I would like to check out the cart. I would like to actually edit the items in the cart. So that's a story. Another story could be, I would like to actually remove an item completely from the cart so that it doesn't, I'm not proceeding from, in terms of the purchase. So that's again another functionality. That's from the point of view of a user story. And then the task could be that, it could be database, for example. You need to create a temporary holder for your items that are added to your cart. So you say that, I'll say cart as a kind of a object. And then within cart, you can add items. And then obviously whatever you added doesn't mean that you create an order for that, right? So you need to have a separate entity called order. So cart is a temporary placeholder for all your items. Only when you confirm and check this out, then you would be creating an order. And that will have the final set of, you'll have 10 items in the cart, but then only you'll have 5 of them or 2 of them in the final order. You could have, or you can have all 10, depending on the situation. And then the task could be something like a CRUD case, as what we were discussing the other day: create, read, update, delete. So the cart could actually have a CRUD. You create a cart, you add different items from the catalog into the cart. That's the creation of a cart. You can review, you can have a look at the cart and say, oh, I don't want to have all these 5. You can delete some. You can modify the number or the quantity of each of those items there. I want 5 of these instead of just 1. I want 5 cases, or I want 2 of them, one for mine and one for my daughter or son. So you would actually like to place 2 items or 2 numbers of the screen protectors. So things like these, you can actually have all of these. So you need to think from the point of view of the customer. So you write some stories from that. And then you think from the point of view of the administrator, you write some stories like that. So then you go on refining the backlog. We're talking about backlog refinement here. And then once that is done, then you actually can have a rough idea in terms of how many stories you have. From there on, we use what we call as planning poker. We're going to get into details later. We would then invite the development team, and we'll ask them, hey, take these few bunch of stories and then come up with the user story points for these. So then they look at that particular point and then have a user story, and then be able to actually say, I think this is 3, this is 8, this is 13, this is 5, this is 1, because we already have this in the database, blah, blah, blah. So we'll talk about that, the planning poker aspect of it, and the estimation, detailed user story point estimation in the next few slides. But if you understand that, you have got at this point of time, it's enough to understand that you've got the estimation done for the stories that you have already done in the backlog. And then these could actually be put in the context of a sprint or an iteration, or this could be actually, part of the big picture product backlog. So then you can actually have, okay, I've got these story points of 8, I've got 5 points, so together 13, I think we should be able to do these, because we have got roughly 14 points of capacity still in this particular sprint, as the total velocity is, let's say, 100 story points for this sprint, which is 3 weeks with 2 developers, for example. So you can then manipulate, you can then think in terms of how much spare capacity. These terms are a bit technical, but don't get too bogged down. It's simple. Capacity is the amount of work that you can accommodate in a particular sprint. So let's say, and velocity is the productivity, basically. So how much of capacity you still have in terms of the number of points that you still have. So that is basically, so we'll talk about these in detail as we proceed, but I'm just trying to give an example. And this is how you can actually try and use the estimation in the context of the Agile. So you can actually have, say, this is the backlog, and then this is in progress, this is in priority, this is the development, this is done, this is still to be done. So things like that. And these are already deployed, these are still to be deployed, this is the done in acceptance test cases. So you can actually have a kind of a good Kanban board trying to actually go through each of these, so you have a clear picture of where you are, and then how much effort is required further to go to the next level where you want to. So all of these actually is accomplished only by estimation, and this is not done at one point of time. Previously, we used to do that before the project started, and then perhaps once or twice during the development stage, and then perhaps as a kind of a post-mortem or post-fact, we do it after the project is done. But then that was the traditional way about 10-12 years ago. But nowadays it's all about agile. It's all about how you expect and anticipate changes, how you would be proactive to accommodate all the changes. So now we do estimation pretty much every sprint. During the sprint planning, after the sprint planning is completed, once you have a look at the sprint review, you look at how you've done. The sprint retrospective is when you could actually try and see your estimates, whether they're really too way off or too much, too tight. So you can then accommodate that. You can actually try and adjust your way of working in such a way that you are trying to optimize your estimation as a technique, as a team exercise.